for me to be a guest here, and I hope this lecture bears the results. And the topic that I'm going to address today is immunization of young people from extremism. And we can address this topic through a couple of points. The first point, in the late decades or the recent decades, we see corrupted ways of thinking that is unsound, unscientific. And those ways of thinking had some characteristics. The first characteristic is the overexcitement and the confusion and the overexcitement that filled those people led to unreasonable behavior, and led to lack of understanding religion, and led to misunderstanding the religion, and led to confusion over reality. And this religious extreme narrative, unrealistic, illogical narrative, led to many disasters and led to superstitious thinking that held people hostage to the past, and led to make people to create violence and extremisms. Those 7 characteristics led to the 8th one, which is ugliness. So the ultimate result is generating an ugly narrative, an ugly extreme narrative that destroys people and destroys religions. In my point of view, those characteristics, they summarize extremism. And I'm not going to mention names of those extremists from any religion, from any school of thoughts. I'm sorry, the interpreter cannot hear the speaker. The interpreter cannot hear the speaker.
فكنت أقول لو وضعنا كل الشخصيات
If we put together all those extremists who exported this extreme narratives, we would find that they are over enthusiastic, over excited. And if I were to look at the characteristics like this, over excitement means those are young people, old or young, they are filled with extreme emotions to serve Islam, but based on emotions. They have enormous determination, and they are very eloquent, and they excite people to help Islam, but with no discernment, with no knowledge, with no logic. They do have excitement, but they don't have logic. So we find people who are excited, irritated, they wanted to help Islam, but they don't know how. And they don't know anything about Islam. They don't know the values of Islam. That led to a flood of people who love Islam based on emotions, but they have no logic or reason. If this kind of extremism and excitement about Islam without knowledge, this will lead to the second characteristic, which is the unreasonable behavior. The unreasonable behavior means they will be confused every day on coming up with activities and proposals about Islam, but with unfounded. So those people would generate thousands of activities and events and ideas for Islam, but those activities, they have no reason, have no logic. So this is what creates this overexcitement leads to unreasonable behavior. People will not be patient to seek knowledge, and they will be impatient to seek knowledge. And they would think that Islam is in demise, and they can't be patient to spend years or some time to study Islam, because he would think, you are asking me to spend years to study Islam, and the Islam is going down. So they will not have the logic and reason to hold their horses and to study Islam. So studying Islam would be an act that they cannot tolerate, because they are impatient, they are overexcited, they are over enthusiastic, without reason, without logic. So indeed, those young youth extremists, or those people, have excitement. So thus excitement leads to the lack of understanding Islam. So we do have tools like in Azhar. Al-Azhar for 1,000 years has been teaches Islam, and Azhar understands Islam throughout and thoroughly. If we don't have a proper understanding of Islam, we will have confusion. Azhar has 12 types of disciplines or science or disciplines about Islam, like grammar and all those 12 disciplines about Islam. And then we have the verification aspect of Islam and disciplines about analyzing the logic and the arguments. All those are one of the 12 disciplines in Azhar to study Islam thoroughly. And building a human being and ethics and morality and so on and so forth, those disciplines, those tools are very accurate. And if we are missing one, you won't understand Islam thoroughly. You need to understand those 12 disciplines. That again, I repeat, overexcitement leads to unreasonable behavior, leads to lack of understanding of Islam. I remember, I just mentioned Al-Azhar because it's one of the biggest Islamic thoughts, but it's similar. Azhar is similar, the one in Islamic school in Tunis, the one in Algeria, in Shanghid, in Sudan, we in Hadramaut, and in Iraq, we have all those Islamic schools. They are similar and analogous. They have methodology, they have a curriculum that could help people to understand Islam and to understand the goals of Islam. So I repeat, so excitement leads to the seventh characteristic, which is lack of understanding of the meaning or the goal of Islam. If a person is a scholar, he becomes, and he understands the Islam. He understands that Islam comes to preserve the human soul, to preserve the mind, to preserve human's property. Islam comes to preserve the morality and ethics and countries. Islam comes to honor humanity, and Islam comes to flourishment, and Islam comes for science, for education. Islam comes to honor the soul. Islam comes to, to build civilization. But those extremists, because they are overexcited and because they are over enthusiastic, they lack the true or and the right understanding of Islam. And instead, they have a different meaning of Islam. So they have seven goals, which is claiming others that they are disbeliever, and the jihad, and and khilafah and tamkeen. So the meaning or true goals of Islam have been replaced by other games. So those young people have no concern but to prove how other people are disbelievers or don't follow Islam. And they have books that they would claim that people abandoned Islam long time ago, and they would think Al-Ummah is no longer Muslim. And this sentence, this sentence that they claim that everyone is disbeliever and no longer Muslim, is the same sentence that Daesh people or people from ISIS keep repeating. So this kind of extremism makes people just, or makes those extremists busy just proving that others are not Muslims. Ladies and gentlemen, what really puzzles me, that those extreme school of thoughts, when they are convinced of the idea of bara and bala, bara and wala, which is meaning the loyalty to your leader. So they no longer believe in the country. They believe that the country is worthless, and that there is no verse in Quran saying anything about the country. So you could see how deluded they are. And I have addressed those wrong ideas in my book, Al-Haqq al-Mubin, Liman Taraba bid-Din. And I addressed, I tackled though the great Islamic scholars a long time ago, when those at the time when Islamic scholars had a clear vision, and I was interested in how those old Islamic scholars perceive the notion of country, and they saw an interesting ideas. The Muslim scholars, they adored and they respected the notion of the country. For instance, Al-Hafiz ibn Hajar says, when he said, when Anas said, and the Prophet, when the Prophet returns to the city, he, Hafiz ibn Hajar, in this saying indicates that the Prophet, peace be upon whom, loved the country. Therefore, we have the right to love our own country. That Islam came to deepen the loyalty to our country and to seek to make our country pride of us, and not to attack the notion of nationality or country. Abu al-Faraj al-Jawzi in his first kitab says that countries are beloved, are loved Imam al-Asfa'i says in his book, in Al-Majalis Jawahir al-Ilm, that Arab people, if you want to know a man, look at how he loves his country. That determines whether a person is a good or bad, whether he loves or not his country. And there are poets who are poets, or who write something about a country can be in a desert, a country can be in a very cold area. Nevertheless, if your country is in a desert or wherever, it's still your country. The poet says, a country I got accustomed to, I got used to, a country that might be in a very bad place. Nevertheless, it's my country. This is one of the best principles of Islam, is to love country no matter what. So I repeat, overexcitement leads to lack of understanding of Islam, and that leads to the lack of understanding of Islam and the confusion over reality and not being able to understand reality. And the economical issues and the confusion over the relationships between countries and the situation of Muslims all over the world and the psychological makeup of people. All that should be taken into account when we analyze the situation. So with the fifth characteristic is the inability to understand reality, and therefore not being able to come up with a narrative that is based on mercy and love. Instead, it comes up with a narrative that creates hatred and creates hardship to people. So people, those deny reality and those people clash with reality. So I believe that extremism is a phenomena that claims that it's part of religion or so again, overexcitement, lack of understanding Islam, and then the sixth characteristic, being unreasonable. Those extreme school of thought generate a very extreme narrative, a narrative that is unrealistic and superstitious. We don't have time to cover all that. The seventh characteristic is the lack of humanity, where we claim that others are not Muslims, or we create that this kind of extreme narrative creates people who just hang to their arms and unhuman. Whereas Islam comes to teach the true meaning of humanity. I'm going to come up with a short story before I wrap up, a short story from our old scholars, from people who have high morals and ethics. One of the Islamic scholars, As-Safi, Abu Qasim al-Julayd, As-Saqati, and Abu al-Qushayri, As-Saqafi, one of sat between his students, and he says, for the last 30 years, I'm seeking forgiveness from Allah. From a day I said, Alhamdulillah, thanks to Allah. And the students was amazed. Why did you ask for forgiveness for 30 years because you said Alhamdulillah or thanks to Allah. This is very puzzling and very strange. Why you spent 30 years asking for forgiveness from Allah because you said thanks to Allah? 30 years, he said, 30 years back, I was a tradesman, a businessman in Baghdad in Iraq. I was having lunch with my colleagues, with my friends. At that time, a man was coming to us shouting. He was shouting, fire, fire in your shops. So we ran. We were panicked. While I was running, and another man came and he was shouting, your shop was saved. So I said, Alhamdulillah. Then I remembered that I was happy to have my shop secured or saved, and other people were not. That's why I was seeking forgiveness from Allah, because I said, Alhamdulillah, when I realized that my shop was saved from fire, whereas others people had their shop lit or on fire. So this shows how people used to be tender and used to be compassionate. So this is the last characteristic of all the previous characteristics are there in one person that creates a person, an ugly person. So we will have school of thoughts that are extremely ugly, extremely destructive. Let's wrap up and remind 8 characteristics, the positive characteristics that our scholars adhere to. All those 8 characteristics will have an opposite. For 1,400, the school of thoughts, we use, instead of excitement, we have people who are subtle, who are calm. Instead of overexcitement, we have a characteristic of calmness. Instead of unreasonable behavior, we have wisdom. So the old scholars used to be wise. Instead of lack of understanding Islam, depth and understanding of Islam. Instead of confusion of reality, a deep and profound understanding of reality. Instead of logical or instead of unreasonable narrative, we have logical narrative. And instead of inhumanity, we have humanity. And instead of ugliness, we have beauty. I hope, though, my words could summarize my speech and provide any meaningful, hope this beneficial. I hope my words could explain how can we create extremism and how can we create the opposite. How can we create the wise mind? How can we create people or minds that seek knowledge and wisdom? I used to tell my friends that there are 5 words that could be the curriculum for the Muslim schools. 4 words that we can enlighten the world. I have delivered lectures in Indonesia and Jakarta. I have Kazakhstan. I have delivered lectures in UK. Wherever I go, I would say, if Islam disciplines are in one mind, we have 5 words. Respect the universe, the cosmos. We have verses in Quran to respect others. to honor humanity. Third, to preserve countries, to help civilization, to increase faith. And peace be upon our Prophet. Without further ado, I'm not going to. I will open the floor for the questions. Thank you, Your Eminence. Thanks for Your Eminence. And I hope this speech will be on your account. We have two questions. Unfortunately, we see many ignorant people or young people. They quote something. They describe a moderate Islamic scholar. They describe a Muslim moderate scholar and describe them, those scholars, as the scholars of the country or the rulers or the kings. Why do they describe moderate scholars as those scholars who are owned by the state or owned by the king? Do you think this label is bad to the scholar, or is there another term that how can we explain to these young people that those moderate people are not owned by the state or owned by the king or the president? What do you think about this? This is the first question. What is the second question? The second one, some young people, when they have artificial study about the Islamic narrative, particularly the interpretation of Quran, they quote some of Quran verses in Quran, and they quote some of the saying of the Prophet, and those extreme incidents against some extreme behavior against non-Muslims, and they quote some verses from Quran, and they would say, we have the right to claim that those are no longer Muslims based on verses in Quran, based on saying in the Prophet Muhammad, of the Prophet Muhammad. First of all, the first one about that some people claim that the scholars of state. I've looked at this for a long time, and I'm reflecting where this come from, when this came from. When this idea came from, I realized that there is an interesting chain of events. You may remember that what I highlighted, that the extreme narratives, they come up with 7 ideas. They start by the takfir, which is claiming others are non-Muslims. The first step is to claim that others are non-Muslims, takfir. And then one of the claims or arguments that they characterize other countries, that they are no longer Muslims. And when those narratives started by takfir or by claiming others are not Muslims, when they claim that everyone else is kafir or non-Muslim, this will lead to, they challenge any argument. So if any Islamic scholar has respect to the state or respect to the king or the president, will be perceived as an enemy to those extremists. Therefore, how the whole idea started? It started by takfir, thus leads to the clashes with the country, and led to generate an extreme narrative. And this is all because lack of understanding. For that reason, I assigned some of my students and some researchers to come up with examples about the good relationship that could happen between a Muslim scholar and the state. Ibn Sirin, for instance. Ibn Sirin, scholars say he has a high esteemed. Ibn Sirin, one of the most esteemed scholars. At one time, he was in business with an old woman. He is a great scholar. He was a businessman because he was an independent person. So he had a business relationship with an old woman and he lost money. And that old woman, instead of respecting the scholar, she sold him, and he was in prison. Ibn Sirin was in prison. The warder, because he respects the scholar, he went to the prison and told him, I can overlook and I can let you out of the prison to go to see your family and come back. So the ward or the prisoner, the prison guard said to the scholar that I can let you out to see your family and come back. Ibn Sirin, the scientist or the scholar, angrily replied, he says, no, don't let me out of the prison. I will not help you to betray your king or to the president or the state. Ibn Sirin, although he was criticizing the state or criticizing the ruler, but he told the prison guard not to let me out, and you have to respect the ruler, even if you want to honor me, even if you want me, but you will betray the rules of the ruler or the president or the king or the. So this is this sheikh, this scholar, this antidote or this short story shows that an Islamic scholar refused to leave the prison because he shows respect to the state, to the ruler, and how important to have a stable government and to respect the ruler, not because of hypocrisy, but because he has this deep conviction that the religion and state won't prevail unless we respect the ruler. So the relationship between Islamic scholar and the ruler should be based on respect and should be based on understanding. So the relationship should be safe, is mutual trust, mutual respect between Islamic scholar and the ruler. So the extremist who wants to carry a gun against the country, extremist will be disturbed to see a stable and respected relationship between Islamic scholar and the ruler. So this idea comes about from takfir, from claiming others are non-Muslim.
ووثق السلطان في كلامه هذا هو عصمة الأمان لاستقرار المجتمعات ولتحقيق مقاصد الشريعة الثقة المتبادلة بين العالم
So respect and trust between a ruler and the Islamic scholar is required and needed. The second point is some people may quote some verses in Quran that may indicate some extremism. This reminds me of another example. A builder builds a house. His profession is building. We give him the raw materials, the bricks, the cement, the sand, the raw materials for building. He takes the raw materials and builds a house, a very solid house.
ويظل عقود من الزمن.
And for too long, a building that for people to live in. What happens if we give the same raw materials and give it to a man who has never ever practiced construction or built anything? So now tell me what happens if he claims to know, if the second person claims, even if he has the same raw materials, he will create or rebuild a building that a building that will be destroyed or collapsed in no time. Although we have the same raw materials or the same tools we give to two people, the difference is the first person has a methodology, has experience, knows how to deal with the bricks, with the cement. Is not the ingredient of the building. It's the understanding of the builder. And when we don't have the methodology and the experience, we create a building that could collapse in no time. Similarly, this is an analogous or a metaphor that understanding is very important. If someone doesn't have any understanding to Islam, he will have corrupted understanding of Islam. So it's not about the verses of Islam, but whether or not is being understood by the right person. For that reason, we can see great scholars we can see great scholars who study Quran, and we can see also an extremist. And for that reason, to wrap up, I collected each and every verse that the extremists quote or rely on. And I have a saying for Muslim al-Bazzar and fi Sahih al-Muhibban, a saying for the Prophet Al-Hawwad ibn Kathir indicated this saying, that peace be upon him, I'm afraid that a man has the Quran. A man who understands the Quran. A man has the Quran. Can we imagine someone who reads or understands Quran can be a big risk? The Prophet, peace be upon him, says, I'm concerned about a person who Allah gives Quran and he knows how to read Quran. A man has the Quran, the peace be, and he changes the Quran. How he changes the Quran? That changes you cannot change the verses. You cannot change the words of Quran. because the Quran is preserved. He changes the interpretation of Quran, who misunderstanding the Quran. As Ibn Umar, he says, a verse that comes in a certain situation, it changes the interpretation. What happens? So what happens when we change the interpretation of Islam? So when you have misinterpretation of verses, we start claiming that others are non-Muslims. If we have misunderstanding of Islam or Quran, we will start claiming that others are non-Muslims and starting fighting them. So I have collected each and every verse that those extremists use. I started to look. I look at that verse, then I understand, and then explain the true meaning of those verses. I came up with a small book, and the book is under الفهم المنير للآيات والأحاديث والتي أخطأ في فهمها أهل التكفير, to interpret those verses that were misunderstood by those extremists. Sorry for taking too long. Thanks, Your Eminence, Dr. Usama Azhari, the consultant of the Islamic Affairs in Ministry of Islamic Affairs in Egypt. Thanks for this comprehensive lecture, and I hope this lecture can be beneficial to everyone and could enlighten the young Muslims to understand the text and preserve them from extremisms that insult their faith and their country. I repeat again, thanks for this valuable lecture, and I would like to thank people who are watching us for following us on this, for following us on those Islamic lectures, and we hope to meet the Sheikh next time. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.